everybody, but if it's your story, and just want to let you know you're not all making decisions, as I mentioned previously, Monday or a Friday. So basically, take this as it resonates. You may be currently in this energy, you may be moving, away from this energy. So again, it'll have some validity to you when you start hearing me go through all of the details. So I just wanted to kind of give you a glimpse of what I am looking at here. So I will say now the cards that kind of fell out here on the at the end that sort of fell in succession was the Ace of Pentacles, the Fool, and the Ten of or the Four of Wands. Now I will say that I'm focusing more on just your general relationships. Doesn't have to be specific to romance. This can be just family dynamics. This can be um, people that you consider family, close friends, but it's overall sort of current energy of this month. This is currently in April, but again, it's whatever resonates for you. So this may be when you find it. We'll get right into it. So I'm going to start out with the first two cards, which are Six of Wands. And we do have some clarifying energy here. Actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll go through the initial cards first just to give you an idea of the breakdown, and then we'll tie everything together here shortly thereafter. Okay, so when we start off with this Wands, that is a card of victory. That is also a card of, in terms of relationships, it can be um, a little bit more, how do I say, conquering kind of energy. So again, we'll see how it plays out in relation to the other cards here. But right now, what I would say is the energy is coming off as moving forward either way. And it does also indicate that if we're talking about a romantic relationship, that can also be a sign that there is something here that kind of speaks to, very strong physical attraction. If we're just talking about relationships in general, as far as, friends, family, that kind of thing, well, again, we're going to kind of piecemeal it together in different ways. So, but overall, the card basically is sort of speaking to having some kind of a deeper understanding of things here as well, because this is you're not backing off. This is actually going forward in some way. So, I mean, one sometimes can indicate that there is a little bit more of an argumentative kind of standpoint, and again, that can be if it's followed by a lot of the negative cards. But right now, I want to say that things are still looking relatively positive as far as your connections. So again, we're going to just go through this in a couple different angles here, but right now the Six of Wands does sort of speak to relationships still being at in a very positive way. So again, I just feel like you are in a position where you would speak up, you would say what's on your mind. Nine of Cups is all about wish fulfillment. This is about something that you want. This is again the main energy that's out are all minor arcana. So I wouldn't say that there's anything that's going to be noteworthy and really troublesome in this current energy. It's mostly just in around the range of positive emotions where things are still moving forward, looking hopeful with the Ace of Cups, and then the Four of Wands, a combination that fell out toward the end. Can be in around family again, or it can be around dynamics that represent as family to you, so friends, family, that kind. But either way, things look fairly positive so far. So again, like I said, Ace of Cups, this can be, I mean, I'm not going to do it as a money read where we're yet. This is really more a relationship front of things. But either way, Ace of Cups represent as summer, so there might be something there that is relative to that, but it is often a symbol of love or an emotive kind of thing. So it's a happy situation in a being stage. But either way, it is almost luck on your side as well. And I would say even in terms of a connection or a romantic situation. Or friends, family, whatever, again, it's still a deepening of that connection. So it's almost like things are being revitalized. There is a chance for this to feel more of an inspired kind of connection. So, if it's a new connection, it would be love at first sight, that kind of thing. But if it's just those that are still in romantic entanglements, that kind of thing, you are looking at things from a new angle where things will start to deepen. So again, there's something here that's far better than you expected in terms of your relationships or your connection. And again, because these cards fell out at the end, I'll read those kind of separate and independent. But the very bottom card was Justice. So there is definitely Libra, Gemini, Aquarius is also represented here. Water sign is also showing up here. Um, these were kind of the main energies, but we'll sort of pull it through and see where things go. So now we're going to clarify things. I want to know as well, when we're looking at the Nine of Cups, this is also somebody that sees you as a sense of ultimate happiness for them, or at least has a very strong, a real connection to you. So this feels like this is more along the lines of, people that you have been in contact with or know in a very deep way, like long term connections. There's definitely something here about contentment and fulfillment and that kind of thing. And again, if we're talking about things more on an intimate level, for those of you that are not following for the relationship dynamic around friends and family, this in terms of that other relationship on a romantic would be more along the lines of, sexual pleasures and sensuality and things being much more, again, deepening of a commitment. So again, there's different elements, different. So that's why I say I don't want to keep it too surface because there's almost a layering of things here. Um, and then again, let's get right into. I'm going to pull this forward as far as what's the angle of the immediate cards here. So let's look at Six of Wands next to the Wheel and next to the Temperance. Now, the Temperance card is something that's sort of middle of the road, definitely trying to find some level of balance here. And I would definitely say there is a lot of that that's at hand. So what I'm going to say here is because the justice is showing up, the temperance is showing up, it's like there's a big shift in a connection here that may have been a little bit combative. As I said, I will tie it all together even with more of the astrological signs here too, but I just feel like there's a lot to sort of unpack here. Okay, so again, this is something here where I feel like there is almost a reunion, where you're seen or someone else is seen, and then you're starting to be appreciated in some way. When it's next to the Wheel of Fortune, this does suggest that this is a relationship connection that's in a bit of flux. So it's going through some kind of a big shift or change. And again, it's almost fated, karmic, that kind of thing. And there is another layer of timing that's at play here. So with the Temperance card following up, almost like that balance is healing. So it's more of a long-term energy. It definitely suggests that there's a lot more possible here and it requires some balance and some kind of effort on your part to sort of, bring things together. So I would say overall though, like this is still really good momentum. There's still something that's going in a very positive direction. Now, when we get into the Nine of Cups, again, I mentioned that that is your card of happiness, but it's also followed up by the Three of Pentacles, and that's also followed up by the Seven of Cups. So there might have been some confusion in a situation. Certainly, it does look like somebody may have had a lot of options if we were talking about that kind of thing. But I do feel like this is, again, followed up with all the deepening of the emotions and that kind of thing. To me, this is really representing more of a wave of emotion, of hope. There's been some confusion and some testing, and I feel like you are getting emotionally what you desire out of the situation. So again, it is almost a feel of a solo kind of, fulfillment. At first, your happiness can't depend on them alone, but there's also something here with Three of Pentacles that kind of speaks to, you know, other people wanting to rebuild with you. So again, whether this is family or romantic, I'm still going to say that this is wanting to rebuild with you, wanting more of an effort or a communication that's still needed there. There is a lot of emotional illusion or, where things may need some clarity, things are distorted in some way. Sorry, guys, I'm just doing this en route, as I always do when it's easier for me when I'm trying to do errands and things. I just pull over, do the thing. Okay, so, but again, back into the read here, the Seven of Cups does indicate that there's some kind of emotional illusion. So, like I said, there's some area here of this connection that still needs to have something, realized or something, some kind of clarity there. Now, I did see, like I said, with that Ace of Cups energy coming in there, that really does still look good as far as the deepening of the connection. So as I mentioned, followed up with the King of Cups. I mean, that's a mature energy. This could be again sort of feels like it's more along the lines of a loving new start, something that's healing. And this can be you, but it's also developing a deep emotional maturity despite whatever's gone on here. Now, there may have been a situation where there has been some kind of painful walking away of whatever, but it was never an end. It's almost like it was a walk away to find clarity, but not to abandon the situation. So again, there's still something worth fighting for here with the Seven of Wands for those of you who are in that mode of things, but it still feels like protect your energy, protect truth, and it still has a lot of elements to me that speak to, again, some level of disappointment. Something is not quite living up to a certain level of expectation. There's possibly some kind of disconnection on some level here, but it's almost like the offer of reconciliation is going unnoticed because of this hurt, but is going to be coming in this next little bit here. Now, the cards that sort of fell out, like I said, onto the side here, were the Four of Wands and the Fool card. So this could be dealing with a younger person, but either way, it's a new path, it's a new energy, and it definitely speaks to there being some kind of happier reconnection. So I feel like this is, again, it can be people that represent as family or just simply family because of the Four of Wands, but either way, this is a long term connection. And I do feel like it's a celebratory kind of feeling, a homecoming sort of feel. So there's something here about a bit of a reset with the Fool card, and it's some kind of brand new beginning. You know, there might be a little bit of baggage, but if you can release the expectations around it, this will really move forward in a quicker way because the card of the Ace of Cups is really indicative of a very solid beginning. So, as I mentioned, we are looking at, and sort of the Knight of Cups as well. There's something that you have wanted to connect with, and it's like things are upgrading in some way. Despite the level of confusion that you're seeing on the surface, there's something that's changing there. Now, I would say, because as I said, there's been a little bit of a disconnect with the Four of Cups here, but I would overall, the energy of the Ace of Cups is the strongest here. It is a solid, real world kind of tangible thing. So it's like there's a new way of relating to family or friends or this person, but for others, it's an actual reconnection of some sort here that's going to be much more positive. Now, the Justice card, and it does feel karmic because of the Justice card as well and the Wheel of Fortune, but either way, the truth is sort of setting itself free here. So there is something that's coming through about, karmic energy is starting to rebalance here. Things are starting to align. So I would say overall, if even if it feels a little cold or slow, the good things are still here, and the potential for that reconnection or that peace, those new chapters opening up are here. So again, I feel like a strong, fresh, emotional or physical beginning is possible. Definitely emotional fulfillment with that Nine of Cups, Ace of Cups, and that there's just a lot of things that are still being processed here with that Seven of Cups, Four of Cups. So some kind of miscommunications are still relevant, but overall the energy is still quite positive. Now, in general, I do feel like the Knight of Swords means there's going to be some kind of communication that I feel is going to be quite positive for you with the Ten of Cups. Again, this can be someone who's at a bit of a distance, but it's still a slow moving. The energy comes in quick, but it's a very slow moving action towards you. Somebody who's very practical, who thinks about things, who doesn't do things in a flash, is not chaotic. Even though I feel like their mindset might be a little bit more on the anxiety ridden sort of stage of things, very overwhelmed with the Nine of Wands, but it's also moving toward an end. So you have a lot of cards here that indicate 10-10. So again, you have the Nine of Cups, you have 10 of Cups. I mean, things are almost culminating to something, the arrival of something that's moving in your favor. Now, the Ace of Wands is that new start as well. So something here, very, very positive, openness that's starting to come through. It's like this clarity, and these are all the clarifiers, granted. The energy that you're currently in is the Nine of Cups, so something is going to be coming in quite soon that's going to make you happy here. And that's really going to open things up. But it feels like you're balancing out with the Queen of Swords, Ace of Cups, the logic with the heart, that kind of energy. So again, there's more communication with that Three of Pentacles, more of a collaborative honesty. Everybody's just being straightforward, and it just feels like things are going to fix itself over time if it's not already in that energy for some of you. Again, lots of really positive energy here. So I'm seeing that Wheel of Fortune was that fated karmic sort of shift. And it just feels like the energy overall is becoming much more mature, because of that King of Cups energy, and that's emotional maturity. So if we were to talk about that in terms of a timeline, it might look like, in the short term, sort of 0 to 3 months kind of thing, right? 3 months sort of time frame for emotional boundaries, realization that there's, more going on here, but there's still possible 3 to 6 months. I'm going to say something like, more of an opportunity for reconnection starts to arise with that Ace of Cups. And we also had, 6 to 12 months where there's big decisions, events, or a reset altogether. Fool, Four of Wands, Justice. I don't feel like alone in this situation. I feel like there is going to be some kind of form of a chain. And it does feel like, a relationship, there's something that might end, but there's also something that kind of reopens and it's reinvigorated in some way. So things are flowing more fairly, and it feels like it's a big turning point. So I would say that there is still a lot here about the truth being at the forefront. So if we were talking about the emotional elements here, like the main points, sort of the good and the bad sort of things, is someone's longing to be recognized. I do feel like there is something here, and again, that Six of Wands, Wheel of Fortune, Temperance. I feel like you're trying to hold yourself with a certain level of dignity. You want to be seen by the other person, or the other person wants to be seen here. I feel like you might be just being tolerated but understood, feeling underappreciated, but you're actually the Six of Wands energy. So I know that sounds like a weird, complicated way of saying it, but I'm seeing a few different things with different dynamics here. So I feel like there is kind of giving for validation from someone. Again, for somebody, this is more their story. There's a craving for that validation, something from a family dynamic, or has been shaped by a cycle of, I would say, ancestral trauma or control patterns of avoidance, that thing. But that Wheel of Fortune coming around there, is also quite significant, because that one really talks about the big shift. So this is where, you're being liberated from this trap cycle. So whatever the events were that were around you, I feel like there is more harmony and balance. You're moving into this energy. You're moving into, so like more of an alchemic kind of feel, where everything is much more, it's not about winning, it's about balance and healing. And so because of that, I feel like with that Knight of Cups, Three of Pentacles, Seven of Cups, and the Ace of Cups, King of Cups, Eight of Cups, rather than bring them all forward here, it speaks to me that there's a lot of healing and things are really upgrading. There's going to be better communication here, because like I said, the Nine of Cups is right up here with an Ace of Cups, the 10 of Cups. I mean, this is really good energy here. So somewhere in this connection, there's something very real, and you became stronger in the process. You've learned to control the emotional waves. Your depths became a strength, not a trap. The Ace of Cups tells me your heart is still open, maybe only barely, but it's still there. And it feels like, again, you've had to walk away from some things, not because you didn't care, but because you did. And so it's almost like a meeting of things halfway. That's what I would say there, especially because, like I said, the Temperance card is out here. So there's something here with complicated energies, but feel like maybe both parties or other, again, depending on your dynamic, felt sort of emotionally abandoned in some way. So I feel like this is almost failing to meet each other in that middle ground, but now that's starting to change. So there's something here still about some boundaries up, because we had the Seven of Wands. Sorry, I'm trying to find my cards there. Because we do have the Seven of Wands here. So there's still that energy of protection. Speaking your truth, standing your ground, all of that, especially with the Queen of Swords. It does feel like it comes at a bit of a cost. And again, it could have been emotional detachment of some sort, kind of a numbness or a deep reflection that was going on from all parties involved, but the Four of Cups is kind of that sense of missed chances, not having the opportunity to really connect. But again, the final act of all of this really is quite positive. The Four of Wands, the Fool, and the Ace of Pentacles. So, I mean, these three cards in and of themselves, put together here, really speak to offering a new path here. So the Fool is rebuilding, the Four of Wands is rebuilding. There's a foundation with these people or those that you consider family, these long-term connections where things are already seated. There's a sense of renewal with the Ace of Pentacles and as well with the Ace of Cups. So it's like there's still good energy here. And again, it's maybe just a seed or a message or a gesture or something like that, where there is some kind of for it to be seen in the right light. But the Justice card does tell me it's like truth will reign. You can't control others. But you can walk your path with integrity. And so this is a karmic sort of energy, but it's not punishment, it's restoration of a situation. So, I mean, the good things about this, again, is I'm seeing emotional maturity here. Definitely emotional strength. Someone has grown, and there is a new opportunity for love or connection, and it's definitely feels like this doesn't really feel like it's new love necessarily. This is the story I have for whoever's watching in terms of a long-term connection. This does feel like it's more about offering more stability, and there's some kind of new beginning here as well. And like I said, the Fool card came out with that energy here too. So this and the Four of Wands is really indicative of, there being more joy or more celebratory kind of feelings here. So again, there's more balance, and I feel like this is a higher alignment here. So whatever was painful, I feel like whatever those miscommunications were, that kind of thing. Again, emotional abandonment with the Eight of Cups, but it feels like from both of you, it was almost like an equal sort of feeling. But either way, there is still that resistance and defensiveness with the Seven of Wands, Queen of Swords, but there, and that level of feeling needing to protect oneself. It's hard to trust once there's been this kind of energy, but I would still say the timeline again is, from now to the 3-month period, more emotional reflection, still a little bit of detachment, but there's now some truth telling about how things open up. 3 to 6 months, again, is where I see the strongest reconnection of things, and it's more of a fresh tone. So I feel like emotionally start to come forward. 6 to 12 months, again, major shift. Could be like a celebration or a relocation or a major defining moment in this long-term connection. But I definitely feel like there's a new foundation. And like I said, there's something here about inner alignment as well. But I would still say just trust divine timing. Even if the process is slow or unclear, it's about forgiving. You don't forget your own worth in the process. You don't need to return to that version of the past that, is that erased you in some way. So, stay open to communication. And I feel you don't want to fix or force anything. This is really allowing everything to kind of seed back in time. And it does feel like it's going in that way. I feel like you're building, a stronger foundation because the old one is restoring, in some way. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the right words here, but it feels like it's restoring a level of safety and a little bit more along the lines of being seen again and all of those things. So, like I said, I feel like even though you're perceived as being direct and maybe there's a certain level of intensity going on, I still feel like there's still a refreshing sense of working through something. So either way, like I said, emotionally coming off a little bit guarded. The ideal with the 10 of Cups, 9 of Cups, at least one or more of your friendships feel spiritually deep and emotionally safe. And it definitely feels, even though the energy is slow, it's a loyal energy. It's a committed energy. And in this friend group or in this particular dynamic, and it definitely feels like it's energy that's going to be it's not always about passionate emotion, that kind of thing, but it is showing up in its own way, as though it's working towards something solid. So again, Nine of Wands is kind of the wounded warrior, but again, feeling like one needs to protect oneself. There's a card there that cards speak to endurance, like I said, as does the Seven of Wands. So again, there's still really strong cards of very positive energy, but I feel like overall, it's like everybody's been through an awful lot, and there's a fatigue, there's a level of endurance, but there is that spark to reconnect or reignite something again. Something about spiritual vitality is also returning here. And again, I feel like whoever it is that is here represented, they see you as smart and intelligent and emotionally honest. Maybe honest at times, but they do have a respect for you, and that helps to cut through some of the illusions. So, I would say that this is probably you that's more so wanting this deep connection. You don't want just surface, and I feel you don't always know how to get there. Actually, and for the most of you, like I say, this could also be relevant for the other person here, but I still feel like there's a lot of love and loyalty that exists here with the Ten of Cups and the Nine of Cups coming through. Lots of love and loyalty, and it's a long-standing emotional bond. Certainly a desire for, recreating or regenerating something, but again, it's like it went through a fated karmic situation with this connection, so that's allowed for more spiritual depth, draws you closer to the other person, and there is that message of, can we try again? So, whatever the negatives were, guarded energy, different pace, one wants to move faster, the other wants to move slower, tension, miscommunication, it's still moving in the right direction. It's the timing issue that seems to be the thing that is the factor, but I do feel like they're engaged in this transformation with you. So I would say that you're still attracting relationships that mirror your own growth. And I feel like your core truth is still there. Your honesty. You're trying to find your soul. You're trying to find those deep connections in this lifetime. So that's what I have for you. And I wanted to just quickly wrap it up that some of the main energies, again, just to finalize everything, was more along the lines of Taurus, Capricorn, of course, the water signs here, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. There is the Aries fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius with the Ace of Wands as well, but I'm going to say that the big ones out here were probably more along the lines of the Ten of Cups, which is still water sign for me, and the Ace of Wands, fire signs, is kind of the focus. But again, you're surrounded by a mix of energies right now. And not everyone's on the same wavelength emotionally. Like I said, timing seems to be a bit of the issue. One wants to move faster, the other wants to, is moving a little bit slower, methodical. So I feel like that's where the incompatibility is in the journey. Anyway, let's leave it at that. Keep moving forward, guys. Hi, Jay. Sorry, I've got the sun on my card and my thing here, so it's pretty bright and I can barely see the comments. But anyway, thanks for following along, guys. I'll see if I can do another read here. It's always based on the amount of power in my car, or my, what do you call it? Phone. Anyway, till next read, keep moving forward.